Alex.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
Fine. Some business as usual. So we'll wait a couple of minutes and yeah, then I will basically make some presentation of our backlog. Uh, you will be my only listener, I guess, today then. But I hope that the guys who will maybe watch it later on YouTube, yeah, will get an info from it.
So you're already, I think, working with Ujin, right? You guys
Uh,
are synced up together.
no, not really.
So Valerie is he joining?
He will come a bit later. He has some another issues to solve. Are you still here? Ah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, good. Then I guess I'll start. I will start. So what's happened since last 2 weeks, basically? We worked on the architecture and the backlog of the whole of our project. We have several meetings with Magento core team, with Magento architecture team related to related to our project, and we basically end off with the final scope, at least currently for the MVP. So the project MVP I described our last weekly. If you need an info, just jump there. But yeah, and today I made a pull request to update our architectural documents, which we have there with the latest version. I guess if I click here, view file, I can have a look, right? So again, all the stuff I described on the last meeting, feel free to see the recording of it. I'll not go too deep here. If you also want, you can find this on architectural repository in base extension for synchronous import design documents. And we ended up with Valerie with a backlog with quite a lot of storage that's currently covering the whole MVP. Maybe a couple of them are missing or some new have to be created, but that will basically happen already during our development when we will see if something is missing. Right. So that's our backlog. You can find any issues, and the final backlog looks like this. Funny, I cannot scroll down here my screen by some reason, whatever. Nice. So something. Oh, okay, okay, I got it. Wait, I'll do this one. That's better, I guess. Uh, so yeah, our backlogs looks like follow. We have already some stuff which is done. Already, I'll do this one. Which is done. We have already some stuff in progress that Valeria is working on, but it's mostly the base implementations and the stories. So we split our backlog on the stories. I will basically also do like this, I guess, just to show what do we have. We have documentation, definitely yes. We have the source management, that's the main part, which is covering the upload the source. With the stories inside for like files processing and some fixes of the implementation we have already currently. Yep. Then we have the CSV reader story. That's a story related to the way how we read the documents. We have the two here. Also, idea was to provide the CSV reader if it's maybe used in some other cases. So if you do the generic, that's the sense to make it in Magento framework repository. But again, the person who will do it will definitely have our support on this point. And yeah, feel free to ask the questions about this. Then we have import process. Basically the processing of our import. So like getting the status about the import, saving the import into the database, or information about it. Some small also fixes of the current implementations. We have conversion rules. This story is basically just a short introduction. Also, so on a step when we start in an import process, we can apply some rules to the columns of your table, so we can make it quite dynamic and then use those rules for processing the values. I mean, usually if you're talking about the, let's say, advanced price import, we have a column which named customer group. And in this column, by standard Magento import is taken the label of the customer group. So like resellers, for example. If you'll try to import it within the Magento API, it's not possible to do because Magento expecting to have a customer group ID there, which you don't know. So by defining some kind of different rules, and here we predefine the rules which require to be created for MVP, for customer, we have customer group name to ID. By defining the rule here and the columns to which this rule will be applied, that's maybe a better example here. Columns which this rule will be applied, we know that this column will be converted to correct ID, and then Magento API will correctly process it. Just to simplify also this process to the developers and to basically not developers, to users, don't be scared, because we will provide the default mappings for each object import. Let's say advanced price products, MSI stock, simple stock, customers. So they will have a default mappings. We also have a story for that. And if you will just use the standard Magento CSV, you don't need to define any mappings. It will work out of box. It will find the correct mapping in a configuration and apply it, and yeah, then just process it with by default rules. Then we have basically, wait, I just will open them all. It will be easier for me also to navigate. We have data publishing. That's basically our publishing of the products. This story is quite complex, I would say. It still requires some investigation in a way how we want to publish it. By standard, we want to support two ways. It's when extension is installed like with the Magento monolith, so together, then it will communicate via the service contracts. Or if it's installed separately, it will use a HTTP channel. And in this story, basically, we have to define how it's nicely to make this switcher for the extension user to define how you want to run his import.
Alex, sorry for interruptions. Could you add one point to descriptions that we talked about it previous time, that we need to check the potency of requests? Scope on the spike, and we need to check that all of.
Yeah, that all.
I forgot to do it. Thank
you. Is it correctly written?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point,
Thank
right?
you.
Right, then we have a story basically import configuration, which covering different imports configs which we want to provide. Currently, we want to provide 2. Maybe we will be 3. So 2 which are definitely will be there. That's a configuration of the imports. So we have import type. Let's say we importing the products. We have different behaviors. Let's say it's out of date or delete, or maybe in the future replace. Who knows? Or maybe some else even. And then validation strategy, how we want to validate, like, yeah, we allowing the errors in the import, or we want to have that everything will come without any errors. And our idea is to provide the new configuration file for that. So the extension developers can then easily, by this configuration, create a new import subjects and configure the allowed behavior, allowed strategies, and define the types. Another config will be the mapping. as I already explained before, the mapping for the rules. For, let's say, advanced price, we'll use this and this rule out of box if you not define anything with your request. And also dot configuration, which may come that this publishing type when we define like which communication channel we choose for our integration. It's like HTTP, IMQP, or maybe even some other platform which theoretically can be not even a Magento. So it can be some other system. And yeah, then we come in basically to the main stories, like why we all doing this. It's the objects import. So we define for MVP for basic objects import. It's advanced pricing, which is quite simple. Again, by default supported standard Magento-based pricing. We have products import, but we will not support full import. We will do the MVP, really MVP, so we support only basic attributes which are required for the products processing, not more. Then in the next phases, we will add all other types like custom attributes, extension attributes, stocks, for products inside, images, whatever. So everything which is possible currently have to be also be available. And then we have a stock, which is basically this single stock, and then MSI is the multi-stock inventory import. That's not standard Magento, so in this case we are a bit more flexible here, how it have to look like. But if we will have a look on this stock API, it's super simple. It's like 2 columns or 3 columns table, I guess. Yeah, and documentation story that will be filled with all documentation that we have to cover our implementation. Yeah, so backlog I already showed, separated by nice good first issue. If you want to start with something simple, all other are ready for development and require maybe some investigation, some bit more knowledge of the project. Or even if you don't have a knowledge of the project, you can start with something more complex. Yeah, something that in progress, as I said, it's basically the stories, which should not be taken to development because there's nothing to develop inside of the story, but more in the subtask of the story. And yeah, we have our burn down chart. We plan to release in 2.3.4 if everything will be fine and we will be in time. Yeah, and I forgot to say that basically the idea that all implementations have to be covered with API integration tests as much as possible. Yeah, that's our burn down chart and the stories which are included in these milestones. Some of them are not estimated. That's only the stories, I would say. And I guess I just saw one ticket that was not estimated, which basically I created and forgot to do it. That's our mapping for conversion rules. I would give it 5. I guess that will not be too trivial to cover all cases for that. Oh, I'm running out of battery. But I guess I'm done. If anybody has any questions, feel free. And Alex just joined.
Thank you. So great presentation. So firstly, question to Alex, Palarush, and Tariq. Do you have some concern? Do you have some suggestions? Looks like we included all of requests from your side.
Yeah, should be okay. We can start.
Great, Tariq. What do you think?
Right. I want to know a little bit more about the rules processing. How we are planning to use it, and what's the purpose and how flexible it is.
So I mean, we have different ideas to implement, and we came up basically. Valery came up with like super flexible solution where we have mostly the rule name and then the parameters which are flexible. So we will have in a core predefined rules. Also, we're making it super easy for external developer to create their own. So the usage of them. Let's say you want to import some custom file which was exported from ERP system, which has a totally different fields, looks sometimes super strange. I mean, in my experience, you never know what you can expect from the customer, and you have to align those fields for the Magento so that Magento understand them. Even maybe to have some mapping. I don't know, I faced really super strange stuff like you have yes, no with some totally different phrases written. Like it is enable, it is disable, so like a text, and you definitely don't know how it will be processed. So by the rule, you define it in the rule, and you tell them that this column in your table will be converted by using this rule. So we will have some converter. It will accept the data that you uploaded. We'll go over them rule by rule. We'll apply those rules for appropriate columns of this data, so parameters of this data, convert them in a way that Magento understand them, and return back already prepared for the import object, basically, with all data which are correct. With our rules,
mapping and rules are separate. Do you have a
No, it's the
separate
same.
mapping and then it's the same thing?
No, it's the same. So it can be rules which you define for columns. It's also possible that you want to create a new object, like a new attribute. Let's say URL key for a product. Mostly you don't have it in a exports, but it's required for sale. And you tell them, okay, I want to take the product name, make it lowercase, make it dashes for the spaces. I want to also assign ISBN number to this, and that will be my URL key. So you create a new rule. You define a new column name, which has never existed in the initial import, and then as a result, you will get this like new column in your result.
So are you using some library or some
No, that's
something
basically
to
custom.
process it, or you will custom implementation?
No, yeah, it's custom. It's not too complicated, honestly. We already have a prototype for that. It's quite strict.
Cool.
Good. Any other questions? If not, then I guess we are done for today. Thank you very much for joining. Good. Yeah, I forgot one note. We had a branch which called. Let me tell you correctly. So, but yeah, Valeria, you want to say something, or should I proceed with it? I mean, Valeria made this prototype implementation. It's not fully completed. We want to make it all test green. So if somebody will take the stories, please make the pull request an asynchronous import API branch. I will drop this also, I guess, in the channel that everybody know that.
I think I will finish test fixing during a couple of days, and I will merge into our base branch. And I think we need to describe this on some wiki page. That's our main
Yeah, I also
branch.
thought about right. Yeah.
Because generally, guys will use 2.3 develop.
Yeah, correct. Agree. And also, I will ask Valerie and Alex, maybe Tariq also, just check the pull request architecture if you can merge it, because in all our stories we have a link to this page, so that the people, if they read the story, will get an actual result, like the final result. Cool. Then thank you all, and see you I guess for now in 2 weeks we will decide if we will get more interest and we will come back to the weekly report, because we have a lot of small stories which basically can be presented more often.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye bye.
So, see you. Bye.